Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's up, everybody? I'm here with another video today. It's my second one of the day. And real quick, before I get started, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and subscribe to my podcast, 49ers Red Zone Podcast. You know how we do it. We're here with the daily content, and anytime the news hits, I'm here and turning it live. And so today, I'm going to be talking about the 49ers offseason plan and specifically who they signed this morning. I know 95% of you probably do not know who George Odum is, but I'm here to just give you a little background on Odum and whether I like it and the good and the bad of George Odum coming to the 49ers. So, George Odum, he's a 28-year-old safety from the Indianapolis Colts, primarily a special teams player. And when you look at George Odum, you look at how the 49ers are addressing one of their holes this offseason. The 49ers, they've been looking to acquire special teams talent the entire offseason. First, they signed Oren Burks, a special teams ace from the Green Bay Packers, on a 2-year, $5 million deal, or worth up to $5 million. Then they got a guy in Ray McLeod on a 2-year, up to $10.4 million, who's going to likely be their returner for the next year. And what's up? What's up, Zach? And yeah, all pro Odom. That's exactly what I'm about to get out to. But essentially, they got 2 players already in market. I'll get to that in a minute. But there are a good amount of safeties that are starting caliber on the market. And so that kind of shows where the 49ers are going. They're going younger in a way, but they're going younger in terms of Talanoa Hufanga and Tavares Moore, who's also coming off a major injury. He's coming off a torn Achilles and necessarily wasn't that great before. Hufanga, he's a good player, but he's mainly a run guy. I think he's instinctual, but he really hasn't shown as much in coverage, in my opinion, compared to a guy like Jaquaski Tart. So I do think that we are decreasing in terms of talent at safety. And while you have Jimmy Ward and now Travarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley in the back end, so it might not be as big of an impact, I do think that that's important because the 49ers are trying to get better going into 2022. And now you're probably decreasing at a position in terms of safety. And I think that is that might be a little bit of a something that's a little head scratching in a way to me. I do like the signing in terms of the special teams value, but I don't like the signing in terms of the safety value because I think that there are a number of safeties on the board. And even if we were to sign George Odum like a couple of weeks later, I would be fine. But here's why I'm not the biggest fan of the move. Right now, there are a multitude of safeties that are still on the board. We just saw Anthony Harris, who's not a great safety by any means, but very solid. We just saw him re-sign with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's going into his age 30 season, so he might have been a little older for the 49ers, but they just signed a 28-year-old guy. And Anthony Harris, while he isn't a great safety, he signed a 1-year deal that likely comes at a cheaper cost than Greg Odom's deal, and he's much better in coverage. He gave up a 51.1% completion percentage in 2021 and only a 68.7 passer rating allowed. That is very good numbers from a safety, especially one who's been known for his pass covering skills. In addition, he's a fairly solid tackler, so it's not like you're losing much in that area. And also, he used to play special teams. In his first couple of years in the league, he was high on special teams, so he has the potential to play special teams, although we likely wouldn't play him in that type of role. In addition, Anthony Harris had the potential to be a ball hawk. He had 6 interceptions, if you remember, in 2019 before the Minnesota Vikings tagged him using their franchise tag. So he has a good amount of interceptions, and he has the potential to be a ball hawk. I know the numbers haven't been as high in 2020 and 2021, but he's got the potential, and I think that is something the 49ers value, or they should at least value, which is ball skills at a safety position, which I don't think that we're getting here with George Odum. In addition, we got guys who, one of the highest guys that I'm on is Terrell Edmunds. He's only 25, so he fits the 49ers range. He had 4 interceptions and 14 passes defended over the last 2 seasons. In addition, he's a good tackler, and he's done it on high volume. He's done it in a higher volume than George Odum, who's only compiled about 21 tackles in 2020, and then it didn't really significantly increase in 2021. I'm forgetting the number off the top of my head. But Terrell Edmunds, he was a good tackler alongside being a great pass coverer for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last couple of years. He was a good tackler in 2021. 89 tackles in 2021 on high volume. So he also had great coverage skills with 56.6% completion percentage allowed. And that was also on high volume with 53 targets. He also gave up only a passer rating of 63.7. So there were certainly a good amount of players that are still on the board. Terrell Edmonds was, in my opinion, the best one. And he also played 223 snaps of special teams in his rookie season, which was 49% of the special team snaps. So he's not really that unrelevant to special teams. And real quick, Twitter DMs are turned off. Oh, I'll get that fixed. But George Odum will probably be a special team specialist. I agree. But the argument that I'm about to bring up is there were a number of safeties on the board. I know that he'll be a special team specialist, but at the cost you're paying him, at the position you're paying him, that's important. For linebackers, the 49ers were able to splurge a little bit just because they already had a solidified linebacker core. In addition to that, they also needed one guy like Oren Burks, who played alongside Demetrius Flannigan-Fouts. I won't consider that an A signing. I consider it a B signing because I do think that Demetrius Flannigan-Fouts provides very similar talent in terms to Oren Burks because I think they're both fairly solid tacklers. So, but I'm fine with the deal as long as you're boosting up your core. With the Ray McCloud signing, I did break that down last night. I like that a little more because he's shown potential as a receiver. He's shown potential as a gadget weapon. He's extremely explosive as well, which really wasn't untapped as much by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it can be untapped in an offense like San Francisco as a fourth receiver. In addition, I think that a guy like Ray McCloud provides a good amount of special teams help. And with the wide receiver market was actually a lot more expensive this offseason, which is why it's justifiable that you pay a guy like Ray McCloud, who's also a solid deep threat, like you said, up to 10.4 million over 2 years. In addition, that deal is likely highly incentive based. My argument for the safety market, though, is the 49ers are actually having a hole at safety. They don't have a strong safety going into 2022. And if you think about it, if you think that Tarvarius Moore and Talanoa Hufanga can fill the role that's now left by Jaquiski Tartt, I do think that that's a decrease in talent going into 2022, especially with Moore coming off an Achilles injury where he's likely to lose a part of his athleticism. So that's where I think the 49ers are decreasing in talent because I don't think that George Odum necessarily provides them a boost in terms of safety talent. He does in tackling, but not necessarily in coverage. And that's where I think the 49ers had to improve. And when you look at it, there are a numerous amount of safeties on the board, which means you likely could have waited and gotten a better deal. Because how the market value works is there are a certain amount of teams that desire starting caliber safeties, and there are a certain amount of availabilities. This offseason, we've seen it. There are about 6 to 7 starting caliber safeties remaining, but there isn't a market for them because teams aren't as high on those. Teams aren't as high in terms of needing that safety to complement their roster. So there's going to be a good amount of players that sign for bargain deals. And if the 49ers had waited, if they say still, George Odum is my guy a couple of weeks down the line, when these safeties slowly start to get off the board, they could have likely gotten them at a much more cheaper price rather than the $3.65 million that they're paying per season. I understand it's probably heavily incentive based, but I'm saying just financially it might have looked better. And also they could have gotten a better talent, maybe a Terrell Edmonds at a cheaper price, like a $4 million. Where Terrell Edmonds likely makes $6 to $7 million on the open market based on how his play has gone and based on his age. So that's something that I'm just considering. In addition, giving a 3-year deal to a 28-year-old player, I don't necessarily like the upside of that. I do think that there's better upside with offering a guy like Terrell Edmonds, who's a 25-year-old. So if you offer him a 3-year deal, you have a lot more upside given that he's going into the peak of his prime. And you're saying Cal has packages. I agree. He has packages in place for Ray. I do think that he has the potential to be a solid receiver and wide receiver number 4. The 49ers did use wide receiver number 4s last year. We saw Trent Sherfield hit the field a good amount, at least in the beginning of the season. And we saw Travis Benjamin hit the field in certain packages. So that's what I'm thinking about the Ray McCloud thing. But going on to the other players, not only are there Anthony Harris, who recently got signed at a cheap deal by the Philadelphia Eagles, and Terrell Edmonds, but there's guys like Jabril Peppers, who in 2020 was very solid in coverage, only gave up a 65.2% completion percentage, 89.8 passer rating, which is respectable, but he was a ball player. He got 11 passes defended, and he was a good tackler on high volume with 91 tackles. Not only that, he had return capability with 15 punts returned for 187 yards in 2021. So in the little parts that he played in 2021, as he only played 6 games, he did return punts, which is a good benefit for the 49ers because not only can Do they have an extra punt returner and don't have to rely on guys like Brandon Ayuk and all that to complement Ray McLeod? They could have gotten a guy like that in Jabril Peppers, who also has experience playing special teams, but with a guy who's coming off injury as well, who should be fully healthy for the 2022 season, you could have gotten him as a premium. He's also fairly young. He's only 26 years old, which is younger than George Odum. And you have a better guy who's better in coverage and who also has the ability to display ball skills. I think that ball skills are important. And I think at least one player has those ball skills in this 49ers defense, or at least if they have a strong skill set where they don't necessarily have the ball skills, but all the other skills to complement that, I think that that's important. And the 49ers really aren't getting the strong skill set at safety here with this move, nor are they getting the ball skills. So while I like George Odum and while I absolutely applaud them for going after their weaknesses in regards to special teams, I don't necessarily think they're improving at safety. I actually think they're deep, like they're getting worse in a way at safety, which isn't really like which isn't the best move going into 2022 when you should be all in on your quarterback. I've liked the moves that they've done so far. I think that those have complemented the roster very well, but this move I'm not necessarily as high on. Going into other players, there are players like Keanu Neal, Jaron Curse, and Demonte KZ. All three played for Dallas last year, and all three had great seasons. With Jaron Curse being the best, he had 101 tackles and only a 3.8 missed tackle percentage. He is a safety on the market, and with a smaller market, I think that Jaron Curse would have been a perfect signing if we didn't get if we didn't get a guy like Terrell Edmonds. Jaron Curse is 28 years old, but the 49ers just showed with the signing that they're fine going after guys who are 28 years old. So I was going to be fine with a guy like Jaron Curse. He was also solid in coverage with high volume with 65 targets. He gave up a 61.5% completion percentage and only a 77.5 passer rating, which is very, very low. It's definitely way better than average. In addition, Kurtz has ball skills. He had 2 interceptions in 2021. In addition, he also had 10 passes defended. So he's played special teams before. Great tackler, good pass defender in coverage. I think that that's the perfect complement of player that you can have alongside Jimmy Ward to go all in. And so that's where I'm a little hesitant, because if you pay a guy like Jaron Curse $5 million over 2 years or something like that with upside, I think that that's a lot more value that you're getting out of that deal. And so with guys like Curse, Neal, KZ, there are 6 to 7 safeties, not even including Jaquaski Tart, who has a great notion of the system and who also is a very solid player, not only in run defense, but he's also a very solid pass defender. So I do think that there were a good amount of safeties that you could have complemented Ward with. And to Eric's point, this is a strong safety class. This move indicates one thing. The 49ers are going to target a safety in the draft. It's going to be in the high rounds. It probably will be with their first pick. If not, it'll be with their second pick. We're still yet to see what they'll get for Jimmy Garoppolo. If they get a second in this class, they're probably addressing edge and safety with their first 2 picks based on BPA. So that's how I'm kind of viewing it. But the thing is, even if you get a safety, especially with this defense where safeties have to kind of be instinctual, you probably have some acclimation period where the safety might not be as great starting off. That's why I thought bringing back Jaquaski Tart would have been a great move, because you have the bridge safety where you can easily acclimate that new safety, whoever you draft, into the class while also playing 3 safety sets. And with the safeties that we have currently, the 3 safety sets would be Ward, Tarvarius Moore, and a guy like who is it, Talanoa Hufanga. I don't think that that's as good as Ward, Jaquaski Tart, and whoever they draft. I do know Kirby Joseph, and I do think that he has good ball skills, but I do think that Kirby Joseph will also take a little bit of seasoning in the NFL in terms of his tackling, which the 49ers do like. He is a good safety, but there are good players in free agency right now that you could have used to complement your roster while also helping a safety acclimate to the NFL level. That's why I'm a little skeptical of this deal. I do believe, though, that there is a good amount of safeties in this class. I'm just a little unfortunate that if the 49ers were planning to sign George Odum the entire time, why not wait, have his value diminish because of the lack of activity in the safety market, and then get him at a cheaper price, because you're paying him $3.65 million or up to $3.65 per year. And that, I think, is not as beneficial for the 49ers, especially for a 20-year-old player who doesn't really provide as much safety upside. I think he has safety upside, but it hasn't been unlocked yet. And at 28 years old, a guy like that, I'm just wondering, could you have gotten better, or could you have gotten that deal for cheaper? because it doesn't seem like there was a market for him, although we obviously don't know. And there were so many other safeties in the class as well. Safety was one class where I thought the 49ers could have at least gotten a starting caliber player in free agency, and there are still many starting caliber players available. That's why I'm a little skeptical of this move. I do like the addition because of special teams, but I'm a little skeptical at what we're going to do at safety next year. We probably do start whoever we probably do start whoever we draft as a rookie, because I'm not as high on Tavarius Moore or Talanoa Hufanga, especially Moore coming off an injury. So we probably could, or at least that guy will probably compete for reps to start. But our safety group just got a little bit weaker in terms of pass coverage, at least, and so that's what something we have to address in the draft. And with the talent that there's coming, I do think that that's good. I just don't think that it would have been as easy to acclimate into our system as a veteran, at least for this year when we're supposed to be all in. Zach's wondering if the 49ers are going to be close to being done in free agency. I don't necessarily think so. I do think that once the Watson domino has fallen, which it just did, a lot of the free agents are going to start moving based on that. Because I do think guys like Teron Armstead and all the top players might not be as inclined to go back to the Saints because they want to play for a contender or something like that. But I do think the 49ers still have to address right guard, probably backup right tackle, maybe center, although I don't think they will. I think it's right guard and right tackle on the offensive line. They could look to add another edge. They only have 8 current defensive players on their roster in terms of defensive ends and defensive tackles combined, 8 current defensive linemen. So they normally carry 10 to 11. My expectation is they carry 10 this offseason. So they could look to draft one guy, and they could look to sign one guy in free agency. And they could look to also draft 2 guys and carry 11. I do think that they're done at linebacker. They could potentially get a running back, but they did get their wide receiver weapon. They got their quarterbacks. I think one other position they could get is tight end. Tight end, the market seems to have been dried up a little bit. Obviously, we saw the first couple of deals. The first couple of deals were extremely expensive. Guys like CJ Uzama getting $8 million a year, and it was in that 6 to 10 million ish range. But now it seems like the value's dropped. OJ Howard only got 1 year for $3.5 million. I think Austin Hooper is signing for the veteran minimum. So there are a good amount of cheap deals that probably will come through free agency. And I do think that there's still a good amount of safe or tight ends remaining. We got Evan Engram out there. I think Kyle Rudolph's out there. And I think there are a couple of names. I just don't remember off the top of my head. But there are a couple of names that are still out there. But regarding George Odum, I think it's a good signing for special teams, but not necessarily for our safety rotation. I do think that gets weaker. And I did think that that was something that we had to do going into this free agency period. I did think that that was something we'd at least have to retain going into 2022. And I do think that we get worse here at safety with this move in terms of not bringing back Jaquaski Tart and bringing back Odom. Although special teams should see an increase because George Odum is one of the better tacklers at special teams in this free agency period. Lastly, Tyrann Mathieu is he is. Tyrann Mathieu is the only top tier safety, but that doesn't mean that there aren't starting caliber safeties. Some starting caliber guys that are still there are Terrell Edmonds, Jabril Peppers, Keanu Neal, Jaron Kearse, DeMonte Casey, Jaquaski Tart, and potentially Landon Collins and Deshaun Elliott. That's 6 to 8 guys that people like. And I do think that those guys could get decreased deals just because there isn't a market for them. And that's why I thought the 49ers could have been in their range. But lastly, one other question. Anthony Ferkser, pass threat option tight end. He could fit well. Another guy is Robert Tonyan, who obviously has a relationship with the 49ers, in terms of he has a relationship with George Kittle. That would have been good to see them too. But I thought that there were a good amount of safeties. I thought the 49ers were going to at least try, not necessarily splurge, but try and get a bargain signing there. And this move doesn't necessarily go out to me and say it's a bargain signing. It's a good signing, but it's not a great signing, and it's not the most ideal signing, in my opinion. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any other questions, be sure to hit me up on Twitter. Be sure to follow my Twitter at RohanSports27 and hit that like button and subscribe. I'll be back with some more content probably tomorrow, unless a Garoppolo deal gets announced tonight.